Hi, thank you very much for participating in our study on the overlap of human and machine explanations in dermatology. In this video, I'll explain to you how to use Plainsight. If questions or problems arise during the course of the study, please contact us by email. We've divided this video into chapters so that you can skip topics that are not relevant for you. To skip topics, move your mouse pointer to the red bar in the lower video area and select parts of the video that's relevant for you based on the chapter names. We request you to annotate the following images with explanations. The diagnosis, whether it's a melanoma or a nevus, is going to be provided to you. We found that in our pilot study, it takes around 1 to 1.5 minutes per lesion. To start, navigate to the correct view. There will be one dataset in your account. Click on it, and then click on Labeler at the top here. Here you should see the dermatoscopic images. I'll first explain to you how to use Plainsight. If this part is not relevant for you, or if you're only interested in certain parts of it, please use the bar below to navigate accordingly. If you're only interested in annotations, please use the video chapters to skip over to the annotation part. You can zoom in Plainsight. If you want to zoom with the mouse wheel, press and hold the Control key on the keyboard, and then use the mouse wheel as usual. If you do not hold down the Control key, you only move the image up and down. If you don't have a mouse with a mouse wheel, but you have a touchpad on which you can scroll, you can hold down the Control key on the keyboard and then zoom accordingly with the touchpad. If you neither have a touchpad nor a mouse wheel, you can still enlarge the images through the Expand button. That's this little button here at the top right. Then the lesion is magnified. If this view is still not large enough, you can enlarge the view in your browser by pressing the Control key and the plus button together. As long as nothing is selected here on the left side, you can then simply move the image. Please note, however, that you cannot annotate and move the image at the same time. So that is, all the image areas that you want to annotate must be completely inside this view. If you want to undo this, press the Control key again together with the minus button. If the image quality is not sufficient despite all the zooming, you can open the Image Quality tab up here and then select Insufficient instead of the default value of Good. In this case, we'll just remove the image from the evaluation. Now we get to the annotations. What we need from you for each image is an annotation of the image areas relevant to the diagnosis, together with textual explanations that you select from an ontology. I'll demonstrate this with a very simple case first, and then show you two more complicated cases. In this image, we see a light brown lesion that contains globules in the periphery, is structureless, moving inwards, and that again contains more globules in the center. For the diagnosis of melanoma nevus, there are different explanations provided. For the ground truth diagnosis, just move your mouse over to the bottom right on Image Details, and there you'll see the diagnosis as part of the image name, in this case, nevus. I then select the appropriate class, and then click to set waypoints to make the annotation. Since in this case, the complete nevus is relevant for the diagnosis, as the entire lesion is symmetrical, I also annotate the entire nevus here. Then I select the appropriate explanation here, the symmetrical combination of patterns and/or colors. Click Out to close the selection. I click Done. And when I'm happy with the annotation at this point and don't want to add any more image areas, I click Submit here. It's important to know at this point that once you've submitted a lesion, you can't change anything. So I'd like to briefly show you how you can correct errors in the annotation. To correct annotations, select the corresponding annotation here on the left side. Then you can see the waypoints that you've set. You can now make corrections by moving points. For example, if you move this further in. What would be important for us is that the annotations as a whole include all the important areas, but not an excessive amount of surrounding skin. For example, we could still cut out this corner of the skin here. Here's how we do that. I click on the waypoints here and drag them inward to cut out the skin. If you want to correct your explanations, go over to the left here and then click on this small arrow, and then you come back to this view and you can correct everything here. You can then confirm this with save. If for some reason you've set one annotation too many, I'll use melanoma here as a demonstration. You can then close this area directly, select nothing here, select the annotation, and then you can simply delete it here using the delete label. If you're now satisfied with your annotations and your explanations, please click submit. Depending on how fast your internet connection is, it may take a moment for the next image to load. I then ask you in this case not to click submit twice, simply because you then send the next image without any annotations. Using this image, I'd like to show you how you can add multiple explanations to one annotation. In this image, we see a blue structureless lesion. I move the mouse again over the image details field to see the diagnosis, which is a nevus. I then choose the nevus class. I mark the entire lesion, and then select my explanation here. First, we only have one pattern and one color, namely blue structureless, and further, with the blue nevus, a melanoma simulator. I click on both explanations, and then I click out to close this. I click on Done, and then on Submit. Finally, I'd like to show you a lesion that requires multiple annotations. We see a dark brown lesion in this image, with a black structureless area here in the upper part, a black to bluish area, depending on how bright your screen is, also structureless in the lower left part, and radial lines that don't occupy the entire lesion circumference in the upper part of the periphery. I move the mouse again over the image details field to see the diagnosis, in this case, melanoma. So we've decided to annotate 3 areas, namely here, here, and up here at the edge. I'll start with this structureless area here. I select the explanation for this area, the eccentrically located structureless area. I click on Done. I make sure I still have melanoma selected here, and then annotate the next area. Here, I again select an explanation, in this case, the structureless area again. Finally, I'd like to annotate the radial lines in the upper part of the lesion. But at this point, the previously annotated region is obstructing my view, and I don't see the margin properly. You can hide that by clicking on this eye icon here, and then the annotations disappear. You can then, if melanoma is still selected, annotate the radial lines at the margin like before. Since this is only about the lines at the margin, I actually annotate the margin from inside again with some distance. When I end annotating right now, this new annotation will also become hidden because I hid annotations before, but this is normal, so don't worry about it. Then I select the explanation as before, in this case, pseudopods are radial lines at the lesion margin that don't occupy the entire lesion circumference. And then hiding can be undone by clicking on the eye icon again, so that all annotations are visible again. And when I'm satisfied with all the annotations in this case, I then click Submit. I have now annotated all the images and come to a new page. And that's it. There's nothing more for you to do here. You can just log out in the lower left corner here. On behalf of our KTI team, I'd like to thank you once again for your participation in our study. Goodbye.